because this one is going to be a special one, trust me. My name is Jeroen. I'm part of the Fabricant. I'm doing the community and operations. And let me quickly kick things off with telling a little bit about the Fabricant, and then we can start the show. The story of the Fabricant. The Fabricant is slaying digital fashion since 2018. We are the first digital fashion house, and our aim is to dress all avatars in the metaverse. In 2019, we sold the first digital-only piece for $9,500. And for the last 3 years, we have been building a co-creation platform where you can create your own digital fashion and wear it in the metaverse. Previously, we collaborated with renowned brands like World of Women and creators like Krista Kim and Steffi Fung. And now in 2023, we are going into a new phase. On February the 17th, we are launching Wholeland. That's going to be a multi-phase drop where you can become whole. Our first drop will be the accessories collection, a series of AR filters that you can wear in the metaverse. And buying an accessory will be your gateway into the following drops in Wholeland. So that drop will be the 17th, but maybe you want to have pre-sale access. Then you can already buy an NFT from the previous seasons on our marketplace, thefabricant.com/marketplace. And then you have 24 hours early access. But I'm not doing this Twitter Spaces alone. My co-host today is Carrie Murphy, CEO of The Fabricant. Hey, Carrie.
Thanks a lot for that, Jeroen. I'm Carrie, one of the co-founders and the CEO of The Fabricant. And yeah, super excited to be speaking and hosting this Spaces together with Robin, Mr. Supermassive, who's been running Based AF, which was a super cool drop just about a week ago and super successful. And yeah, looking forward to hearing more about it, getting some alpha and some details on what's been happening. So yeah, thanks so much for that.
First of all, Robin, how are you?
Yeah, guys, I'm good. Nice to be on the space. Thanks for having me.
Nice. Did you have some fresh cola just now, or what did you drink before?
I wish I had some fresh cola. I'm actually multitasking right now. We have an edit that was due at 6 o'clock, and I've got the guys that left me doing subtitles, and I'm actually doing visual effects while I speak to you. So this is going to be fun.
Cool. Yeah. So maybe you can tell a little bit about who you are and what you do. And later maybe tell something about Based AF?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Robin Schmidt. I also go by Supermassive, and I'm a filmmaker. I think that's probably the first thing to say about me. I tell stories through the medium of the moving image. And I basically spent kind of the majority of my career working for brands, working for other people, working on the agency side of things, and progressively getting more and more disillusioned with it over time, because basically, I kind of was that horrible thing where you're kind of moderately successful. You're not like mega successful, but you've done enough and you've got by, and then you kind of get to a certain age, you look at yourself just going, I really hate the work that I do. Like, I really just don't like any of it. And so you're kind of just asking yourself, like, why bother? Why do any of this stuff? And the question is, well, if not this, then what? And so it's been a kind of journey of just exploring what life as a filmmaker would look like on the other side of crypto. I sort of bounced into crypto in 2017, went through that whole bull run, then the subsequent bear market. And in the course of that time, I realized I just needed to do something different. So I took the plunge, went to work for Harmony as a creative director, and started slowly kind of making videos where I was in front of the camera as opposed to being just the directorial voice behind it. And it's probably worth saying that I directed commercials, TV shows, feature films. I've done a lot of stuff, extreme sports films as well, like just all over the place. And so bagged a lot of experience doing fun and interesting things. And like crypto has just been the most interesting thing I've ever been involved with. So I went to work for Harmony. That was fun. Started making videos, and then through that started working for the Defiant, which is a DeFi focused media brand. I was making their videos for them. And I think the thing that people found me for was I would just tell stories in a really weird and hopefully creative way. Even though we were kind of bashing out 6 videos a week, we'd always try and find some way of making stories interesting, exciting, some form of kind of reflection of the weird and wonderful space we were in. And I left the Defiant probably 4 months ago now, and I wanted to move into a different type of story, and I also wanted to start covering a different story. And for me, Web3 and crypto will always be sort of home base, but it's bound to Bitcoin and the fortunes of Bitcoin, whether they go up or down. And for me, that's really been quite problematic, because you can spend a ton of time building something and getting really good at it and building an audience for it, and then suddenly poof, it evaporates because the whole space just goes in these crazy volatile cycles. So for me, the obvious next place to go and try and build something was in the metaverse and around the idea and the story of the metaverse. So that's what Based AF is. It's a content studio that will make crazy YouTube videos in, around, and about the metaverse. Because for me, it's probably going to be the biggest story of our lives in the next 10 years. It's going to completely transform the way we interact with each other, how we do pretty much everything. But no one's really looking at it like that. They're just looking at a kind of video game, or a really bad video game, or just the worst excesses of crypto turned into a barren wasteland. And for me, it's not that. It's something else entirely. So I kind of wanted to capture that story, looking at it from a business opportunity. It's a niche that could become, multi-trillion-dollar opportunity for anyone who's involved in it at an early stage. And so that gets you interested as an entrepreneur. But fundamentally, like as a creative person, the stories we can tell through the context of the metaverse, the people we can connect with, like Kerry and the team of the Fabricant, to start building out what these things look like in the metaverse, that's not an opportunity I'm going to get where I've come from. So for me, it's a happy place where I get to build something, express my own ideas in my own way, and have a lot of fun doing it. But also, there's a serious business component to it as well. I hope that kind of gives you an idea.
Definitely. And I definitely also see the fun in your videos. I really love them. Yeah, you touched already a little bit on it, but we are now a little bit in a down moment. So what makes you a metaverse positive when there's so much dystopian metaverse fear and doubt?
Well, I don't think there's necessarily fear and doubt around the metaverse. Mm-hmm. I think that there's enough money being spent on it that people kind of see it as something that's noteworthy. It's just that it's so easy to hate on it, and that basically boils down to Mark Zuckerberg being such an awkward spokesperson for this space and a bad fit for so many obvious reasons, that it's just like you can't get past that. It's bad branding for the metaverse to assume that because it's meta, that's the metaverse. But they did the thing that they did. They co-opted the term, turned it into the umbrella for their company, and for whatever vision or however they see themselves as proponents of VR or social interaction, like there's no doubt that Facebook was the prime expression for people to socially interact for a large period of time. So they've got creds, but like we don't need that again, I don't think. So for me, being metaverse positive is actually relatively straightforward, and it's like it's so cringe or whatever you want to call it, but it's like I got kids, young kids, and they jam around on Roblox and they interact with their friends through these digital platforms. It's not hard to see that like this is normal for them. Like it's not necessarily normal for us, but it's normal for them. And as they become older and continue, absorbing and consuming media and entertainment and interacting with each other in these ways, it's pretty obvious that they will be the first kind of true adopters of whatever the metaverse ends up being. They won't call it that. They might, they probably will have a different term for it, in the same way that we had, the information superhighway and the internet, ridiculous. But it's just like, it just seems so obvious to me that that's, if we want them to have a good experience of all of this, if we want them to be safe when they're exploring it, then you kind of need to have a metaverse positive mindset about it, because there is so much that's metaverse negative. And like, there is so many things that I think are actually pretty interesting about the metaverse and point to a radical upheaval of things that we've just taken for granted for all the wrong reasons. And like one of those is education. How do we learn if you can just use ChatGPT. That's pretty profound. And like all those educational skills, it's like, wow, what's that going to do? And like everyone's really terrified of it, but like I often feel like everyone's so worried about the future not being the same as the past that they don't worry that the future might actually be really exciting and fun and different as long as they embrace it. So I'm one of those people that tends to kind of go, let's embrace it and see where we go and not be scared about it. Because if you're scared, then you kind of, I don't know, life just won't be that fun.
That's totally true, yeah. So I recently listened to a Twitter space of yours, and there you said, like, how is it not going to be a dystopian nightmare? How to counterbalance that? And basically, you're saying by sharing more information.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. I mean, honestly, like the dystopian nightmare part of it, it depends whose point of view you're looking at, because there are some people for whom what we consider dystopian is really entertaining for them. And I get that. Not everyone's point of view is the same. And I also think, like, honestly, the more a trend pushes in a certain direction, the more you tend to find a counter trend that pushes in the other direction. So that the more things become digital and AI driven, the more we will value the bits that are human. And that, for me, is a net positive, because we will look at the human side of things and go, God, I really want to just have a human day today. Just switch the AI off, you know? The way you go and you have a digital detox, put your phone away. I think phones are pretty much on the way out anyway. The idea that you have a slab of glass and circuitry in your hand that you have to interact with, like with your fingerprints, like, come on. We'll look back at that and go, that was so dumb. But we've been in it for the last 15 years and we're just used to it, but it will look dumb. So like all of these things, I just feel like one of the things that's missed in the conversation around the metaverse is the idea that the status quo is good and the new stuff is bad. And I challenge that for myself on a daily basis, simply because I think it's healthy to proceed from a position where every assumption we make is not necessarily correct and can be challenged and should be challenged. Because, as we've shown, like in the last few years, I think, like, you never know when something's going to come along and just completely uproot reality for us. And the pandemic did a brilliant job of that. And now we're kind of retrenching back and going, everything's fine again. It's not. Everything is fine. It's just different. And everything is kind of different in so many different ways that it feels horrible, and that isn't fine. But, it wasn't that fine before, even though we might paint the past with rosy tinted spectacles, if you follow my drift.
Definitely. And Carrie, for you, like the same question, how do you see that? Like, how do you see the metaverse positiveness in this whole?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, but also a very big question, and there's many different angles to answer that with. For me, the metaverse was I always looked at it from the gaming technology perspective, and having worked myself in the gaming industry and seeing how many hundreds, if not thousands of people it actually takes to build a game over several years. And now we're talking about this entity called the Metaverse, which essentially is an extension from gaming platforms. And all of a sudden, these gaming platforms would need to start communicating with each other and collaborating with each other. And the technology speaks to each other in a seamless, interoperable way, which essentially is not only a technical challenge, but it's also a challenge to get people to collaborate on. And that's what I love about the Web3 Vision. It is basically saying that we have to start collaborating with each other. We have to start communicating with each other. We have to start opening up our ecosystems, our technology, our resources, our knowledge to each other, to be able to create this collaborative technical ecosystem where we all get to hang out with each other and do something positive. And I still like the example of PlayStation Home quite a lot for those people who had a PlayStation 3 back in the days and could access internet with it. You had this thing called PlayStation Home, and what I would go do there sometimes, I would just go hang out. And my favorite experience there was bowling. I sometimes just bowled for ages. I must have been maybe 18 or 19, and I was pretty bad weed smoker when I was young as well. So I would just be blazing and bowling the whole time. That was kind of how I spent my time. And reflecting back on that time, it was to be like, hey, it was a way to hang out in a space that felt safe. And especially for me, having just moved to the Netherlands, I was a young kid. I did not speak Dutch and did not have friends outside. So it was kind of a safe place for me to connect to a wider network. And that also just showed how we will be communicating to each other, how we will be connecting with each other in the future. And a time before that even was when internet first came out. I think around 1997 or 98 that we got our first internet connection. I used to hang out at GeoCities and play chess online. And the chess online back then, it had a chat function as well. So it was kind of the first time that I was virtually communicating to other people all around the world, and that was very anonymous. And so if you reflect back 25 years, we haven't gotten so much further. It is still the same functionality. It's still the same emotional thing that where we want to connect to and that we want to go after. But now the tech is just so much better. So the evolution of the so-called internet into this 3D metaverse space or immersive metaverse space is natural. And it's all about just creating a better experience than what we had before. And especially for introverted people, for people in remote areas in the world, for Finnish people who happen to sit inside in this very, very cold winter when it's dark and it was just Blue Monday. It's a great place to hang out and be seeking, just connection with others and seeking more knowledge. So that's what I'm most excited about. And I think it's typically the people who have experienced it before are capable of seeing where this is going and feel like it is just a natural evolution. So I don't think we should be, let's say, metaverse negative. I think the metaverse somehow is just connected to what's happening in the crypto world with FTX and Luna crashes, but it's not that. It's so far away from that. And we should not be connecting it. So that's my rambles about the metaverse. And that's why I'm super excited to see what you're doing, Robin, what you're doing with Based AF, because again, it's taking, let's say, the content making, it's taking storytelling into the evolution that it's supposed to be. You're bringing it from a different angle, and you're bringing it from your own personality, and that's what makes it so powerful. And for myself as well, I really relate to what you were saying about your past, having worked in this agency world and doing potentially really cool work or work that looks really cool from the outside, but just not being proud of it, just not seeing of like, hey, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? But not many people are capable of getting outside of that. Many people just, say like, well, it is what it is. That's how I make my living, and that's how I accept it. But what you've done and really thought about, how do you evolve yourself and how do you evolve storytelling in the metaverse is super much respect to that. And I really, really look forward to seeing all the content that you're bringing out. Because it's such a unique angle, and especially the energy. I think the energy that you bring into it is also unique. So you've really been able to position yourself in a very powerful way where, you can't really get competition because it's your personality, it's your narrative, it's your voice, it's your face. So I found those things very powerful, and super happy to be speaking with you here. And if you don't mind, Jeroen, if I just take the conversation further from this, Robin, I think you've been talking about having your own Unreal Engine, or you wanted to create this whole pipeline around Unreal Engine and start broadcasting from the metaverse as your virtual avatar. And I saw some things that you were working with before already when you were at Defiant. And I think you built like a mocap pipeline. Is that correct? And can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, well, the basis of this is that Metaverse, one definition of it is the internet built by game developers. And it's pretty clear that the way games are picked up, the amount of money that's going into there, and the 3D rendering that's necessary for the kind of pop culture version of the metaverse. Game engines are where it's going to be at. And then it just so happens that production thanks to the likes of The Mandalorian, picked up the idea of building digital backdrops in Unreal Engine and using those as part of the production pipeline. And I just got kind of fascinated by this because, again, during the pandemic, you couldn't really travel. So you couldn't go and just get production value by changing where you were. You had to kind of make the space that you had work for you. And there's nothing quite as exciting as having basically a holodeck where you could go and be anywhere you wanted. And the missing piece of that is, of course, the motion capture component, because as you said, I tend to be quite energetic when I present, and I have quite a lot of hand movements and facial gestures and all these kind of things. And I like to have fun when I'm making videos. And so the limited expression you get as an avatar in like VR chat or in other digital worlds is kind of frustrating. So for me, the natural extension of that was, if I'm going to create fully digitally, then I need motion capture tools. And then I fell down the rabbit hole of what these motion capture tools could be, where they would be, and kind of how sophisticated they were. And then you just realize, well, what I want is the system they used on Avatar, funnily enough. It's a bunch of cameras rigged around your room, some judo mats on the floor, and then you wear a silly suit with ping pong balls on it. But I think the fun thing about that is it's unlike other production where you spend all this money making something, and then all the props, all the sets, and everything else goes in a box or in the skip and goes away. With digital production, that doesn't happen. You get to reuse sets over and over and over again. You can, at the touch of a button, be in a different set. Like, from just from an environmental perspective, it's a much better way to do production. But also from a creative perspective, it's just, we can go anywhere, do anything, be anything. There is an overhead to pay on that, because it's not quite as simple as putting on the suit and you can be that character. But you can, as you say, build a pipeline for that. And as long as the artists you're working with and the animators you're working with understand kind of what you want and give them enough time, which I never do, then there's pretty much nothing you can't do. The trick then for me is, like, it's the style of expression that you choose to use, because like 99.9% of all the Unreal Engine produced work that I see is exactly the same. And that's because the tools sort of push you to use them in the most refined, most amped up way possible. Dial up the level of detail as far as you possibly can. Dial up the resolution, photorealism and all these kind of things. And I feel like that's kind of missing the point. And it gets rammed home to me every time I watch people looking at TikToks that are just shot on someone's phone. Like, the story is not the camera. The story is not how well you can resolve detail and how little artifacting or aliasing you get. It's kind of what you're saying, how you're saying it. And so for me, there's a real opportunity in using Unreal Engine and motion capture tools to not do it like it's a film and it's a piece of cinema, but to shoot like, what would a TikTok look like in Unreal Engine? How can we do like the real basic stuff, but do it with digital characters as if they don't know that they're digital characters and they're just normal people you can have a relationship with? That's where it gets really interesting for me, just completely ripping up the rules of what you do with motion capture, because now we can just do it however we want, and it doesn't have to impress a cinema audience, because that's where it's going. That's really fun. But then the other part of this, which just blows my mind every time I think about it, is all of this is programming. It's Python scripting. It's taking inputs that you can plug into game engine outputs and just literally design whatever you want. And because of that, if we're thinking about a live show, for instance, we can pipe in MIDI inputs from instruments that could control the weather, for instance. This is sort of wishful thinking, but I think it's possible. We could take inputs from an audience, plug them into ChatGPT, and then have ChatGPT like changing the backgrounds for us on the fly, so that we have no idea where we are, what we're doing. But ChatGPT, thanks to prompts from people in comments, is just powering a whole bunch of stuff to happen. And like, no one's ever done that before. That's really exciting. It could be a bag of crap, but you're also kind of just experimenting and pushing the boundaries of stuff. And that's all because everything is just code that speaks to other code. And all these programs like Houdini, Unreal Engine, Maya, Blender, they all speak to each other really well. And that level of interoperability between these sophisticated 3D engines, 3D programs, just means that as a filmmaker, like, it's pretty dope what you can do. So that motion capture studio is just going to be a fun thing that we push and develop further and further. Because it still feels like a magic trick to people to see your own body mirrored one-to-one, like in a really realistic way by a digital character. And the tools for doing this will become more available to people through AI. Rococo AI is really interesting, but like it will only get you like 80% of the way. That remaining 20% where you, for me, find the really beautiful performance parts, you're still going to need a very sophisticated system like the one we have.
Yeah, love that. And especially the fact that you're hacking these tools, you're using them in the ways that they haven't been traditionally been used. And it's a similar thing that I saw happening with the film industry, film and visual effects industry. Because when the smartphone came out, all of a sudden it was not anymore about knowing how to use the most high-end camera. It was all about creating quality content. So it's not like, how can you create visually beautiful lighting with the best camera settings? No, all of a sudden it was just like, okay, who can create really, really good quality content and use channels like YouTube and Instagram to distribute and market and to edit? All of those tools all of a sudden became democratized, or like for ease of use for everybody. And now I think what you're doing is you're showcasing of how can you actually hack the system, utilizing again these technologies like what you said, Houdini, Unreal Engine, like 3D software that do have a very long learning curve. And all of a sudden, there's a way of utilizing them faster and more creatively to create content that hasn't been seen before. And that's, that really relates to my next question is like, what is the kind of content that you want to create? And how is it different from what you were doing at the Defiant? I know it's very different, but I would love to understand what are the similarities and what are the differences?
So the Defiant, we started off doing basically kind of short form documentaries about stuff that was happening in DeFi, and then we gradually amped up to do news stories, market stories, tutorials, reviews of protocols, and then live streams about NFTs. And that was kind of how we scaled up the channel. It was very much about education more than anything else. And one of the things that I looked at was the low-hanging fruit in this space for content creators is education. So everyone says, we need more education, we need more of this, we need more of that. I looked at that and went, well, if that's all that's happening out here, you don't need me to be another educator. I'd much rather be an entertainer. And so when designing Based, I was thinking about the content creators that I enjoyed watching, like Ryan Trahan, like Michel Carré, who make stories. And they make really beautiful stories about the most simple things sometimes, but they're really, really good. Like Ryan Trahan in particular, he makes it look like he's doing nothing. But man, there's so much thought, so much heart that goes into what he does. It's just it's an incredible magic trick, and it's the lowest production value you could possibly imagine. Like, it's amazing. I like making pretty pictures and doing sound design and coming up with fun stories and telling stories in a produced way. But there's no doubt, like, some of the best pieces of what we do is just when it's crappy handwork, crappy camera work, and then something happens and you see a bunch of people react and laugh about it. It's such a simple thing, but it's so good. So those are the kind of stories I want to tell. We are very much in the era of Mr. Beast. It's changing a little bit, but the high impact, high value videos with a strong concept and a strong hook are what gets seen and what gets shared. And we want to try and scale up this thing, as far as we possibly can, because it opens up opportunities for us to do some really interesting experiments in the metaverse. We know we need more capacity on the game engine side. Building things in Unity is hard. Building things in Unreal is also hard, and it takes time. The testing has to be on point. So for example, the first video I'm going to be doing, the first major video, is going to be me running a marathon in the metaverse. No one's ever done that before because it's a really stupid idea. But I'll be running on a VR treadmill, which is basically just a metal bowl with lube on it, and you're strapped in and you just use these plastic shoes to slide on it. And we built custom environments that will be in VR chat. Anyone will be able to join, so you can just join and run with me or abuse me or whatever it is you want to do. And then we've got like secret triggers in the world that will change the environment So as I run, it won't get boring. We measured out the loop today. It's like 2 kilometers in game that I run per loop, and I'll be the first person to actually run the marathon in the metaverse. So physically locomote myself in VR through a metaverse environment, and that's the kind of thing. But the training for that took me to Kenya and Mexico and all over the world. It was just crazy. So those are the kind of stories we're looking to do. But like the idea of the metaverse can be expressed in so many different ways. I just don't want it to be about buying digital land and building empty mansions to our own vanity on these plots of land. I think for me, the trick is going to be about finding the humanity in a story, finding the human connection. For me, like with the marathon, I'm like 45 years old now. I've never run a marathon in my life. I don't even like running. I just don't like it, full stop. But doing this, it took me to places I was not expecting. I found a kind of level of zen in the running. And also like when I was training in Mexico, for instance, we went and trained with these ultramarathon runners. And I was asking them, like, how do you keep going for like 100 miles? Well, what is it that kind of allows you to keep going? And they said, well, you feel the earth through your feet. You feel this connection to the land on which you are running. And it allows you to block out the pain. And I was like, well, how do we do that? How do we do that in this digital context? But the thing is, when you put on a VR headset, you kind of go there. You do have that sensation. And like I've been training in the digital world that we built, and after a while, you start to kind of settle into this freaky, weird world that you're in, and start to really enjoy it and find that same sense of zen. Now, I'm not comparing this to like, running a marathon, for instance, in Mexico, where it's beautiful and incredible. But I think a lot of people will never be able to go and make that trip. A lot of people will never feel that they have it within themselves to go and run an actual marathon, to do the training. So there are alternative ways of having a connection to your own physicality, to your own humanity, that is really empowered by the metaverse. And this is just one example, but there's so many others, like falling in love, dating in the metaverse is a really powerful one, because so much of who we are will be determined by our avatar, what we decide to put that avatar on, for that particular day. And when I talk to my daughter about this, she wants to have these specific outfits. She wants to have the things that make her feel herself in all of this. And there's a lesson in that for me, definitely.
Nice, love that. Really great perspective, and I hope for you that you survive the marathon. Would be a real shame to see you go and not make that. I mean, it's a very, very, very ambitious thing to do. So make sure to train well, drink a lot of water, eat well, and I wish you best of luck. And I really look forward to seeing the results of it. We're hitting out towards 22 to the hour. So Jeroen, maybe we can start inviting people for Q&A while we just kind of wrap up with a few more questions, and then we can get some audience questions into it. So while we wait for some people to join us on stage, just kind of a final big question. How are you plugging in brands to the Trashland ecosystem, and how does fashion exist in Trashland?
Oh, great questions. Okay, so the basis of the way we've done this is there's like this kind of vanity complex in PFP collections where it's like, my PFP is rarer than yours because it has gold fur, and that means I'm going to be able to launch my own beer brand with an animal with gold fur. I'm like, I don't see it. And like, there's so much about that question about IP and how we use the IP of our particular brand asset in the world of like normal commerce. I went to Ape Fest, I saw Ape Burgers, and I've seen all sorts of different executions of that. But it always struck me that the success of those businesses was in some way tied to the success of the project in a way that you had no control over. And that felt really off. So we have got an A16Z Can't Be Evil license attached to our assets, and they're pretty permissive. But we also designed the collection in such a way that it wasn't particularly obvious which the most rare items are. They're statistically rare, but you don't look at them and go, oh wow, that's a really rare one, I've got to have it. Because we feel like, we should be a mob, and that means everyone's the same. And then when we go and do a raid in the metaverse, everyone's the same. And so to make up for that, we went a different route with developing and creating IP that could exist from this universe. So what we've done is we've created a bunch of in-world brands in Trashland. And it's worth saying what Trashland is, because when we think about the metaverse, it's kind of a wasteland of bad ideas and rejected propositions where things are just kind of washed up and there's not really a lot going on there, and it's just full of garbage. And that feels like a really good metaphor for it. But of course, you know, in junkyards, there is gems to be found and everything you need to kind of rebuild a new type of civilization or new types of ideas. And then like commerce springs up. So for us, every time you think of a virtual world or a fictitious world, having brands and having commerce in there makes them feel so much more rounded out, because it gives people something to kind of rally around. It's much harder to rally around one particular asset within a collection than it is behind a brand, because we're just tuned that way. So we developed 6 brands in our world, one of which is Fraz Cola, we have Head Crank, we have Shithead, we have Boobies Bar, and there's all of these are brands which we will do the first execution of a product in. So we're going to do a physical product like Fraz Cola. But because we, you know, myself and Jim, my creative director, we come from the world of agency and, you know, creative design and shooting commercials and stuff. Whenever we come up with a brand, we're already thinking like, what's the ad look like? And then if we know that we can do a really great ad for it, it's like, well, then this is a great brand. We want this. And then it was like, well, what would the physical product look like? And how can we use the videos that we make to mythologize those products so that they become sponsors of our videos? And then people who watch the videos that don't know anything about our brand, our base heads and Trashland, they're like, what the fuck is this? What is Fraz Cola? How do I get one? And like, that's kind of what we're playing with here. So we have these 6 brands. Once we've done the physical and digital execution of that, the physical drop, then we're just going to release those brands under a fairly permissive license to our community to do whatever they want with. It'll basically just this idea of forking a good idea. So every good idea in crypto gets forked. So we're like, well, let's just let these brands get forked. So you can have a Fraz in Thailand or in like East Germany, like it's not East Germany. What is this? Like 1980s? Wow. All my references are from like the 80s and 90s. Like, no wonder. But yeah, so like different versions of Fraz, different versions of these different brands that people can then actually run a business of. And because it's not tied to the performance of a crypto or a seeming crypto brand or a seeming crypto IT, piece of IP, then it should have a much longer shelf life and actually be a lot more fun, because the collective effort of everyone that's plugged into that Fraz community or whatever it is they decide to plant their flag, they all benefit from that, and we don't have to own that. And that's just so not the way you do things with brands. You hold on to everything and you litigate the crap out of anyone who dares to infringe on it. We're like, no, let's let everyone infringe on it. So we're gonna play around with that and see where that goes. It just feels like the Web3 way to do it, and we're not smart enough to try and put a fence around it and do it in a different way.
Nice. I love that approach. All right, let's move on to questions. We got a few hands up already. Firehill, kick it off.
Hi, Carrie. Hi, Jeroen. Hi, Amber. Hi, Robin. Nice to meet you. It's really nice to see, the project itself, how it started with, I think it was on 3 of Jan, with 350 people in Discord, and by Friday it was 12K. So it's really impressive. I was wondering, because in one of the slides that you share as well, I think it was a slide that you presented to investors. One of the slides was actually saying like, what is the MTV of the metaverse? And I was wondering, what is your view on that? And second of all, Disney was too far to build, basically. I was wondering, what is your conception of MTV of the metaverse, and why is Disney too far to build so far in the metaverse?
Okay, so MTV of the metaverse is a really handy way of expressing it, because like before MTV, TV was very, very different. It had a very different vibe to it. It wasn't particularly youth geared. It was more towards families and was very safe. MTV changed all of that, and it gave a voice to a generation that were, coming out of punk rock and getting into just a world of music videos that they wanted to consume and share. And what it gave birth to was a whole brand of youth television that was wild and unfettered, and it didn't care about the rules, it didn't care about how things are done. It was insanely creative. Now, the MTV of today doesn't bear any resemblance to that, but all YouTubers that follow the Mr. Beast format, if you go back and look at what Jackass did, how they presented their videos, that is the model for how everything is done. And it's funny how many formats from the sort of heyday of MTV are now being kind of resurfaced and brought into YouTube by big YouTubers who suddenly have an audience and they have money and they can do things however they want, which is amazing because you're seeing these very kind of like vintage formats being represented to a new audience in a completely new way, as if they are new, but they're totally not. And so I've always been kind of inspired by that. And the metaverse feels like it's such a young, weird space that it needs to have its own MTV, a channel that is not afraid to go and be really weird and not afraid to try and use technologies in ways that they're not supposed to be used and not give a shit, because it's finding its feet and finding its way. But of course, you kind of need to find the audience at the same time. And then the other reason for calling it the MTV the Metaverse is just there is so much going on that we can't possibly cover it all ourselves. And like what I'm hoping with Base is that we will be able to serve as an umbrella brand. What used to be called a multi-channel network on YouTube, which is a horrible thing, and it was a horrible mechanism and exploited people. There is a Web3 version of that doesn't do that, and that can actually be super positive if we can build it right. And so a network for other creators to come and plug into what we're doing, because I think it'd be more than possible for someone like a DJ in Australia to send their input to the mocap studio and be part of our live show quite easily. So, in that sense, we're building a network of creators and creative people that are kind of excited about all of this and want to be part of it. So that's why we want to call it a network, because it's just so vast. There's so much opportunity, and there are so many verticals that you can build on top of the metaverse as a concept that need their own verticals, like based kids, or a vertical for parents whose kids spend all their time in the metaverse, like helping them understand what's going on and how they can navigate that and what to be wary of, all these kind of things. There's a ton. I can't do it all, but I can see where this can go. And I guess my investors could too.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. It's really nice to hear this, and definitely I was also asking Antonio from Metamundo about, when you guys were thinking on launching a project, and also to see how it's unfolding. And I cannot wait to see, the further evolvement actually of the project. So yeah, thank you so much.
Cool, thank you for the question. Go on to the next one. Joshua, you want to speak up?
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. I look forward to seeing where you go with this and where it takes you. So thank you.
Cool. Thanks for the question, Joshua. Next one, Chaos Princess. Is that the correct way?
It's Chaos Princess.
Okay.
The Greek spelling was just better for search engine optimization.
Gotcha.
So first of all, thank you so much for this space, and thank you so much. I'm stoked about your agenda, super massive, and I love the based hats. And I want to follow up on the MTV question, since I'm organizing parties in the metaverse on various social VR platforms, and putting the DJ into HTC Vive trackers also works pretty well. But what pains me is that opposed to real life parties, I'm not able to pay royalties to the musicians. So in real life, I hook up with our German collecting society, GEMA, which is like the IAA in America, and have it sorted out that the artists, the musicians, get paid some royalties. And I can't do that in the metaverse yet, because it's like a centralized regional system. I can't hook up with anybody. Bottom line, my question is like, are you maybe planning on brand or like an NFT music label I could then like hook into and have my artists, or have the artist the DJ plays paid on the blockchain?
Well, that's a very good question. It's a very pertinent question because one of the things that we are doing alongside the brands, like people know about probably 6 of the brands, but there's a whole bunch of them. We released another one today, which no one saw coming, which is a rap group called MEAT, which is obviously an anagram of meta, but it also plays on the idea of meat, as in meat space, and our meat bodies. For that very reason, I mean, I used to be a musician when I was a kid. I was like the Bandcamp geek. I was a chorister at Westminster Cathedral. Like, music's been part of what I've been doing at the Defiant on and off for a long time. And so obviously I became a rapper in the metaverse. There's a backstory to these rappers and where they come from, but we definitely want to do that. And we definitely feel like there's room to have, particularly with DJs and parties and things, just a more visceral, more engaged experience. The problem is, it just, like, to make it really sticky for people to stick around, you need to build in a lot of engagement and a lot of functionality into what you're doing. And I guess that's going to be what we're experimenting with for the marathon, because I'm going to be running for like 8.5 hours on this thing, and it's just horrifying. So we had to build in all sorts of fun stuff around it to get people excited. In terms of the record label, like, one step at a time. Like, we have basically garnered investment on the back of being really good at making content, and we need to continue making great content. Being a record label feels like something that, for instance, We Are Hume, that has Angel Baby, they would be really good for, and are much more kind of set up. It's not really my expertise, but, you know, I wouldn't rule it out, because like I literally just said, we released our first single. We will be releasing our first single tomorrow. MEAT appeared on Lex Fridman, they've appeared on Joe Rogan, they've appeared on The Voice, and, you know, there's every chance that they can take off, so we should let them.
Awesome, thank you so much. I'm a Meat fan already. I'm gonna follow up on the Meat label.
Nice.
What have we done?
Nice. Good. Great question. Great answer. Before we move to the next question, Robin, do you want to bust out a rap for us?
I really don't. Just wait.
Too bad. I was hoping you were going to give us some alpha on that. But okay. No, next time. All right, Augustus. I love your bass head. You got a really cool one. Do you have a question? Augustus.
Yo, Robin. How are you doing, mate? Basically, I also wanted to ask regarding the #1 rap group in the metaverse, but as you don't want to give us some lines, I have also another question. It's regarding the upcoming marathon. How will viewers be able to influence you, or how can we make it for you more painful?
Good question. So we're designing and building a whole bunch of activations for that. The base heads themselves will have basically a line of communication with Karma, who's the chief villain in our story, and they will be incited to do various things. There's going to be all sorts of different ways you can get involved. There'll be votes in Discord to make my life uncomfortable for me. There will be prizes that you can win as well, so you'll be able to win a base head, but I'm hearing that there are going to be other prizes as well. And you can also just join the game and yell abuse. There's going to be all sorts of different ways that you can get involved. There will be specific things that only base heads can do as well. But the whole idea is to make it fun, but not for me.
Sounds amazing. Looking forward, mate. Regards from West Germany, by the way. Bye-bye.
Yeah, so sorry, that was just, where did that come from? I've got David Hasselhoff dancing on the wall in my head now. I needed to go away.
Great. So have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Great question. Jeroen.
Yeah, I got one comment and a question. Like 8.5 hours for a marathon, you can do better, Robin. Trust me. 5 hours should be the target, right? Anyway, we talked about Mr. Beast a little bit, and I was wondering, what can he learn from you? What can Mr. Beast learn from you?
Yeah, well, here's a funny story. I had a meeting booked in to talk to his manager about 3.5 months ago, and he ghosted me. because like basically Mr. Beast has an investment arm, and what I didn't realize is I've been put through to his investment arm, and I thought I was being put through to his management company, and he never showed. So I'd actually sort of sat down and thought about that very question, like what would Mr. Beast learn from us? And there's like a few different things that kind of Web3 can do really well, and there's a few things that Mr. Beast does really well that he doesn't need us for. But I guess where I was thinking was, if you're Mr. Beast, the power that you have is, you can launch a brand, you can launch a product, and that's fine, and you can launch an investment mechanism and build software or whatever. But I was also reading Balaji's network state at the same time and trying to think how someone of the scale of Mr. Beast would be able to motivate his community to become a network state in line with what Balaji writes about in his book. It's a really wild idea, and if you haven't heard him explain it, there's a great podcast with Raoul Pal from Real Vision where they break it down, and like it's wild. But it's basically this idea you can have a state of people who are not bound by geographical borders, but are in fact a digital network state, and they can be motivated to do things and motivated to collective action to do things. And it feels very similar to what Mr. Beast is doing. So in that sense, that's kind of where I think Mr. Beast can learn things from us in terms of how you motivate your community to build with you and take collective action in ways that are around that idea of the network state. I think there's some other things around how you can use NFTs to reward communities. And one of the things that we talk about here at Based is trying to understand how we can build what I call the third pillar of the creator economy. So that, like, the creator economy, if you look at it in a very cynical way, it's about attention, and it's about building an audience so that you can then monetize that audience. And how you decide to do so, it's very much, it's extracting value from your audience. And as long as you're clear with yourself that that is what you're doing, then I think it's okay, because you're running a business and you're building, as an entrepreneur, a sustainable life for yourself, doing things, whether that's selling courses. But because it's an algorithm-driven space, what I think the majority tend to do is just make for the algorithm. So the more clicks, the better it is. The fewer clicks, the worse it is. And things need to blow up for you to be happy, because that's how you pay your bills. And I think we've all seen the result of that. And so it becomes very cynical, it becomes very extractive. It's like retention strategies, retention hacking, all these kind of things. I just hate all of it, honestly. So when I think about what vision of the creator economy I want to build, there's a third pillar, which I call share the spoils. So it's like, yeah, build an audience, monetize that audience, great. But then share the spoils. Now that doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, you're going to get paid for watching my videos. It can be in all sorts of different ways. And I think that's the bit that Mr. Beast doesn't necessarily do. He does share. He gives money away to people. Like, he makes money, he gives it away. But then he's using all these other things that he learned how to do in order to create the opportunity for collective action, whether it's around planting trees or saving the ocean. He does a bunch of really good things, which he doesn't necessarily get the credit for. And I'll be the first to say, I don't really like his videos. I think he's very clever in the way that he puts them together, but I don't look at them and think, wow, that's a really well told story. Like Ryan Trahan, absolutely. But Mr. Beast, no, not really. So there's just some things there. For me personally, trying to understand how to do that third pillar, do a more holistic version of the creator economy. Those are things that I would like to have a discussion with Mr. Beast about and see where we might see some common ground.
I'm sure he'll be knocking on your door very, very soon. I see two hands up. Should we go with Siridar first?
Yes, thanks a lot for having me. Robin, man, thanks for your view on Web3 and the future of it. It's been amazing. Great spaces, by the way. I was just wondering to pester you the best. I think it was this Saturday, right? It's 21st of January. So at what time does the marathon start? Do we know that? Yeah.
Yeah, we do. So 6 p.m. Central Eastern Time is when I will start running. There are some twists and turns. Like Augustus was asking about making my life painful. There's two huge twists in the storyline. because basically here's the problem. Like watching people run a marathon is quite boring because it's just a bunch of people running quite slowly for a very long time. And like watching a guy run a marathon on a VR treadmill is even more boring, trust me. So we've had to come up with ways of making all of that fun. And we're also trying to raise money for Great Ormond Street Hospital as well. So then we were trying to come up with a gamified way of making all of that make sense and making it really visceral. So there's some twists and turns, which is why, you know, a marathon, you'd expect to get it done in about 4 hours, but that's running on the road, running on the VR treadmill, add at least another hour. But then if I'm telling you I'm going to be running for 8 hours, I might give you an inclination of what's in store for me, that I would be that slow. So there you go. So it'll be a big old chunk of my day spent sliding around on a slippery metal bowl.
So just to be sure, it's this Saturday, right?
Saturday the 21st on the Base AF YouTube channel, 6 p.m. Central Eastern Time.
So excited, man. Thanks a lot.
No worries.
Wow, love it. There's a lot of curiosity and questions about the marathon. I'll surely be following you too. Okay, my lovely co-founder and creative director, Amber J.
Hey, Robin.
Hey, Amber. Hey.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, very well. It's been a while. It's so lovely to hear you speak. And, yeah, honestly, like your story is so incredible, and I've been listening just with awe to everything you've been saying. The steps you've been taking, it's insane, and you know, all the art that's been created is so beautiful. So congrats on that. It's insane. I wanted to really comment on the comment that you made about embodiment, basically, which is, you know, you being able to run in the metaverse is actually bringing you closer to your body. And I think this is a really beautiful aspect that we don't really focus on right now, because the metaverse is very much about like, okay, we're going out of reality. It's creating this virtual world where we will all live in, and a lot of people are very scared of that. But I think what you've just highlighted is the fact that with these new technologies, we are able to get closer to our bodies, and we are able to actually really land into ourselves. And I think that is just such a beautiful example of how you can use technology to embody yourself more. And I think this should be spoken of more in the metaverse, rather than us trying to escape to this crazy reality where we think everything is better. Like, how can we use this technology to actually create a better version of ourselves in the real world as well? So I think it's really amazing that you highlight that. And also your comment about your daughter, of her wanting to feel like herself. I think this is also such a beautiful thing to realize, that this place is a space where you can experiment on who you actually are, and you know, create the identities that you don't dare to wear in school, for instance. That's really what the metaverse and digital has been for me, where I could just experiment with who I was without people judging me. You know, I could be this alien crazy princess, you know, which I am in real life now as well, but it took me some time to kind of adapt to that and to feel comfortable with that. So I think this is also a very important aspect. And lastly, I would love to see a collaboration between one of your brands and the Fabricant. Like, I think this would be insane. So yeah, let's chat more about that.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I think we first came over to film with you guys, like getting on for 3 years ago now.
2019.
Wow, it's been that long.
Yeah,
Wow.
2019.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so like, you know, I needed to kind of get to the point where I was ready to do justice to your creations. So I think I'm almost there now. So I would love that. And I think, you know, that's the fun thing about having the brands in World, because they don't carry the negative associations of the base heads. They can just be their own thing, but of course they are connected to the world, and they can be shared by the world, but they can also connect to outside of crypto and Web3. And I think that's probably the thing that I'm most obsessed with, is figuring out a way to bring an audience to the stuff that we do, that we love doing, that isn't caught up in all the toxicity and all the negative stuff. They can just enjoy a piece of content and have fun with it. And so all these things we're trying to do is just making that bit easier and making it kind of feel like something that they would consume in real life. And then they go, oh, actually, you know, we've got a bunch of NFT stuff with it. Well, actually, it's not so bad. We're not burning down the planet. So, you know,
Love it.
Well, we shall see.
Love it.
There's a ton of stuff that we need to figure out. But yeah, that's definitely, something I want to explore. I do.
Amazing. I love it. And, storytelling is shaping the future, and you're shaping it with your stories. So it's incredible, really.
I hope so. I think the storytelling component can be a tool for good and a tool for bad, but there's nothing quite like being wrapped up in something and go, oh, that was good. That was good.
Love it.
Robin, it's 10 past the hour, and I knew you were doing some VFX editing. How are you still for a few questions?
I'm good. It's actually it's my kids going to bed that I having given my daughter a very big shout out. I'm now disappointing her by not being there for bedtime.
Oh no!
Classic.
Oh no! Well, we got last one. Solio.eth on the floor. Do you mind taking his question?
Okay. No, of course.
Okay, Solio.
Yeah, g'day fellas. Calling you from Los Angeles. Hey Robin, big fan, bro. I've been watching you for years, and big fan of the brokers and all that. What I wanted to say is, I live in LA, Venice Beach, and I was thinking about, say you're in a bar, you got you up on YouTube doing some crazy shit in the metaverse, and a bunch of drunken fools slinging stuff, and somebody kind of almost like an MC hosting and slinging shit at you while you're in the metaverse. Have you thought about that? Like having an entourage of shit slingers in bars in different locations. I mean, I have a house here in LA that I was going to make a NFT Airbnb, and I suddenly thought, man, I could have a giant TV in here and 20 or 30 folks in here doing an event around you and Basehead in the channel and stuff like that. Anyway, I thought I'd throw that little idea. I just thought of it as I was listening. But
yeah, well, that's that. There's a company called Feature that have built a little box that is designed to be like an Apple TV, and their pitch is bringing the metaverse to the couch. I feel like there's definitely things there. One of the ideas that we're cooking up is how to be the funniest human in the metaverse. Like, how does comedy travel when it's virtual? And that's something that I've been obsessed with, kind of, because it's like when you're a digital thing, you lack all of that physical expression. Can you still be funny? And how badly would you die on stage? Because you know how awkward it is when a Skype call goes wrong. Like, it's basically that amped up because you're there and everyone's looking at you, but are they looking at you and do they pay attention because they don't have to stay in a seat? I really want to explore that, because there's nothing more vulnerable than being a stand-up comic. I mean, you're literally up there being judged for every word you say. It's like, make me laugh, go on. And again, we talk about these human connection things, but laughing is so important to being a human being. And I think some of the stuff I consume around the metaverse, it always makes me laugh how goofy it is. So something around that would be really fun.
Yeah, well, I look forward to it, and I look forward to the marathon and everything else you're going to deliver. Let us know when in advance when you guys all come to LA and want to do some crazy stuff in Venice or around LA.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like LA's like, as a filmmaker, LA's like my spiritual home. I love it, and Venice particularly is my favorite place. Yeah.
Right on, brother. Okay, take it easy, all.
Take care.
Thanks for the questions. Jeroen, do you want to start wrapping up?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you so much, Robin, Kerry, for joining, and all the people that asked questions as well, and of course the people that were in the audience. Like I said before, we are having the next drop of our Whole Land campaign the 17th of February. Definitely check that one out. If you want to have more information, go to our website, thefabricant.com. It's going to be a big one. And last but not least, next Thursday we have another event, and that will be on Discord, and it's all about how to create a mood board. So we're going through our mood board that we created for Whole Land. So there you have a deep dive in all that we did for Whole Land and our accessories collection. So thank you so much, and hopefully see you next time.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, Robin. Really appreciated this. You're super inspiring. I wish you all the best for the marathon. Don't kill yourself. and really looking forward to following your journey and collaborating very soon as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. Always a pleasure.
Awesome. Have a nice evening, everybody. Thanks so much for joining, and speak soon.
Later.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, guys. Thank you.
Robin, aka
Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and maybe consider watching one of my other videos. Bunnies up!